Hey, folks, and welcome to the Through It Therapist Dies podcast. This is your co host, Craig Graves, and I am here this week with another short episode. So, this is our normal weekly release time, but unfortunately, summer has caught up with Chris and I, and the scheduling just didn't work out. And although we have the next couple shows planned, we don't have them recorded. So, if you're paying attention, we've released a couple of short episodes where we're cutting out some helpful information in a much shorter format, and that's what we're going to do today. So today's segment comes from episode 11 on the foundations of marriage, and this is by far our most popular show. So a lot of you folks listening may have already heard this part, and it is about abandonment and engulfment, and it's kind of a nutshell. Abandonment and engulfment in a nutshell, if you will, and how it interacts with the primitive brain, or the oldest part of our brain. And we did episodes specifically on abandonment and engulfment recently, episodes 41 and 42. So if you wanted to dive deeper and you haven't heard those episodes, I would recommend episode 11 and episode 41 and 42. But Chris believes that EFT, engulfment, abandonment is really the foundation of marriage counseling and marriage therapy, and also relationships in general. So the theory is that each of us fit into one of these two categories, and if we understand it and can figure out where we are, then we can make our relationships better. And this may be overkill, but the great Zig Ziglar said that repetition is the mother of all learning. So if you've heard these things before, it'd be good to hear them again, and might be a good idea to share this with folks who don't have time to listen to those 3 episodes in full. And we're talking about probably over 3 hours of total time, and this little segment here compacts it into about 15 minutes. So I'd love to hear your feedback on these shorter episodes if you could. ThroughItTherapistDies.com is where you can find out more information about us. And if you click on that Contact Us link there, you can send us an email. You can also provide feedback on Facebook if you'd like to do that. And you can find links to our Facebook and Instagram on the Through It Therapist Dies website, ThroughItTherapistDies.com. And so here we go. Hope you guys find this useful, and I'd love to hear some feedback.
So those are the powerful emotions that we're talking about when we're talking about the attachments we have and the levels of emotion, insecurities that are there. And that was there, here's a really important point, before you met your spouse. Before you even met, these things are at play. Because it's really easy to blame your spouse in a marriage. You know, man, you make me feel awful. Yeah. Let the comedy begin here, right?
Yeah, right.
Go, Craig. Put him on spot. Comedy. You blame. And you just, because it's so easy to do. It's so easy to look at the other person. So let me go into what's happening with these patterns that they identified. I found myself in therapy saying this stuff over and over again. So I'm sorry if I'm being long-winded, but it's an important pattern set to look at. So it goes like this. Psych 101, you will remember the system in your brain called fight or flight.
Right.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
The amygdala, which is, get this, 12 or 15 times faster than your frontal cortex. Okay, that's important because your frontal cortex is a part of your brain that thinks abstractly, pulls fact and fact and fact and fact, and pulls it all together to create a decision or a thought. Your amygdala is 15 times faster, if I'm correct on that number.
What is the amygdala?
The amygdala is a part of your brain that interprets threat, fight, or flight. Gets kicked when your amygdala says there's a bear on the street.
Well,
and it's going to kill me.
Then. Yeah, that makes sense. If you see a bear, you don't need to sit around thinking about what's going to happen. You need to get out of Dodge, right?
Some believe it's the oldest part of our brain. It sits right above the brainstem in the middle of our brain, and there's the hypothalamus and the different brain chemistry pieces that drive our fight or flight system. Okay?
Yep, that makes perfect sense.
So forget about the term fight or flight. What Gottman identified is the 2 main insecurities that are driving the behaviors, the thoughts, the adrenaline, the cortisone that gets pumped through our body with the fight or flight system. The 2 main insecurities that you are operating from is, you've well heard of abandonment, right? The other one is engulfment. So what happens is this insecurity gets triggered with the amygdala, and your body kicks into this crazy state that you're either going to be killed or you're going to run for your life. So when this gets triggered, you are then in that state. And when you're in an attachment relationship, what we're saying is you get into a conversation and you get keyword triggered into this state, and you're going to sit there and think you're going to work through an emotional problem with your partner. Now, how do you think that's going to work? I'm going to kill or be killed, but yet we're going to sit here and talk about the bills. Or I'm going to kill or be killed, and we're going to talk about how's best to parent our child right now because he got a bad grade. Sometimes it's really as simple as, because our brain doesn't understand the difference, Craig. I'm either going to kill or be killed with this fight or flight thing through abandonment or engulfment, and figure out how much we're supposed to spend on the groceries like this week. This is how crazy we can get in the moment when our amygdala fires off.
Okay. So we're talking about something that's the oldest part of the brain. The caveman didn't have to worry about paying bills and those kind of things. So as we have evolved and our society has grown, now we're worried about paying bills and parenting kids and
because our
going to
frontal
baseball
cortex
games,
grew.
but we still have these primitive fight or flight or kill or be killed tendencies that you're talking about.
Very powerful emotional systems are at play.
Okay.
So abandonment is one and engulfment is the other. I call this the razor's edge. At birth or early in childhood, it really doesn't matter why. I haven't been able to figure out why. It could be multiple reasons, and it doesn't matter quite so much because it's happening in today's world. So the razor's edge, you fall on one side or the other. Everybody's on one side or the other.
Either or. There's
Either
only
or,
two.
and you roll to extremes.
Okay.
And how far you roll on the extreme is where you're at.
Right.
And you try to come to the center, but you roll to that. And everyone has both insecurities, but you're on that razor's edge, I say, at birth or earlier on, whenever it is, because you really don't tend to switch, is what I kind of believe. That's what I believe. It's what I see. I can't say that Gottman would say that. I'd be curious to ask him that question, but you're really primarily, very clearly on one side or the other of abandonment and engulfment.
But you said we have tendencies of both.
Right.
But we're more on one side or the other.
Perfect.
Okay.
Very much more on one side or the other. So abandonment people, we're going to use the word pursuer instead of the other term, Psych 101, fight or flight. Forget that. We're going to pursue with abandonment people or withdraw from engulfment people.
Okay. So if I'm on the side of abandonment, I'm going to pursue.
Correct.
And if I'm on the other side, engulfment,
you're going to withdraw.
I'm going to withdraw.
Now everyone understands what abandonment is. You're going to be alone, left. People aren't going to be there for you. I actually had to look up engulfment because that's a weird word.
Yeah.
Engulfment.
It is. I've heard you say that word before, and it's a weird word.
Engulfment, if you think about it, engulfed by flames, engulfed with fire, or the tsunami comes and engulfs you. It overwhelms you. It comes in and takes over. It's like it's an all powerful controlling force.
Okay.
Engulfed.
Okay. All right. So I'm sure you're going to this, but if I'm an abandonment person, and me and my wife get into a spat about the bills or taking the kids somewhere or whatever the deal, or my partner, how do I react to that if I'm an abandonment person?
Perfect. I'm going to do both right now.
Okay.
Because that's where we're going.
Well, obviously, the next question would be, what does the other one do? Yeah, so good.
The behaviors operate with this pursue pattern or this withdrawal pattern, and it is very cyclical. And this is why people will go around and around and around and around in cycles and wonder, why are we having the same argument over and over and over again over the last 40 years? My gosh, can we not do something different? Well, this is why. Because the abandonment people will pursue. They will try to get emotional safety through getting close. And so they come close to pursue you. I wish people could see my hands with this because I talk with my hands on this is important.
We got to get on YouTube soon.
I know, right? The engulfment people will withdraw because they are trying to gain emotional safety by getting distance.
Okay.
So there's where you get your primary difference and your cyclical, constantly reenacted scenario. I or you get upset, triggered, and we get into this insecure, very powerful emotional state, and we do opposite things. Whoever goes first. If you withdraw, then I'm going to get triggered probably and pursue. If I pursue you, you're going to get emotionally triggered and withdraw. And we just go in that way over and over again.
Okay. So what does that pursuit look like? I mean, and withdrawal. I mean, so what if just describe what that scenario might look like.
Perfect. I want to refer you to the website, throughatherapisteyes.com. We're going to figure out a way to get some awesome that I pull out of my shelf all the time. I don't use any of my old handouts, Craig, but I use these ones constantly. I pull them out. You'll hear these behaviors come out off of this page that my good buddy Jeff Shook gave to me. Awesome therapist.
Jeff Shook.
Yeah. He gave this to me, man.
Jeff.
He
Great
gave
guy.
this to me, and it was awesome. I use it constantly.
Yeah.
You'll hear these things come off the page. You're either in set 1 or set 2. Set 1. I can't count on you. You're not there for me. I feel all alone. I fear that you're going to leave me. Seems like what I want isn't important at all to you. Seems like what I need isn't important to you. Okay, set 1. Set 2, I fear that if I get too close, you're going to criticize me. You're going to control me. I feel like I need my space. I'm going to lose myself in this relationship. I feel like you're far more in control of this thing, or you're trying to get more control of this relationship in me. I feel overwhelmed by your needs. I feel overwhelmed by your reactions and all your emotion. You're so emotional. Set 1 and set 2. And as the audience listens to this, what I want you to think about is, which one does your spouse sound like? Which ones do you hear? Which ones do you hear that you say, that you feel? Because generally you're going to fall in one or the other as your primary go-to.
Right. Okay.
And the other thing that's on this is an article that I found on the web that'll further help people identify sort of, because I'm actually surprised. Which side do you think you're on? People struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
The article real quick is going to go out to a lot of more daily behaviors that more further answers your question, and also really is pointedly designed that I use in tandem to help people see which one are my tendencies, which ones do I tend to go on with.
Is it not kind of obvious, though? Shouldn't the person really know?
They really don't.
Really?
What are you hearing in those two?
Well,
set
I mean,
one
it's
and
you know,
set two.
the one person tries to draw close, and that's the abandonment person.
Right.
You know, hey, I want to work this out. Let's talk about this. Let's figure
Right.
this out. And the engulfment person says, hey, I need some space, you know. I need to think about this or whatever.
Think for a long time about
let me
this.
get back to you. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Seems pretty obvious on which end of that spectrum you would be, but maybe not. I mean,
People struggle a lot of times. I can't tell you how many times people say, well, I do both. And we get to really looking at this individually and working through the issues. And
you
you'll find
did say that both people have both tendencies.
you can, particularly with the article that I have on there.
Yeah.
You'll see some on both sides of it, but you're going to see a lot more checks on the left-hand side, which is abandonment, or on the right-hand side, which is engulfed.
So it's going to be weighted one side to the other.
It's going to be heavily weighted, I would say,
Okay.
if you're really looking at it.
Got it.
Which one do you see yourself as?
Oh, man, you put me on the spot.
I know,
don't you?
right? You said it's easy.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
Well, I'd rather not say.
I'm clearly on the abandonment side of it.
That's probably where I am too.
You know?
Yeah.
It's easy
Yeah.
for me to see this and see some of these behaviors. And the thing is people need to realize that it's totally okay to identify one or the other. Because we all don't want to be abandoned. We all don't want to be controlled by other people.
Right. Yeah, that's true too.
Who wants either one of these? These
Yeah.
are both horrible.
Right.
You know. But you will find that you primarily go to one or the other, and there's no shame in that.
Yeah. So what do you have? Do you speak with couples that are they're both one? They're both one. So you have a man and a wife who are or do opposites indeed attract, and most of the time it's one or the other.
Perfect. In a relationship, you have 3 options. Okay. Man, I wish we had more time because I can give comedy on the on the withdrawal.
We can hang out.
You can have 2 people. We are going to go over. There's no doubt. We have a withdrawal pattern, and basically both people want distance and want space. Craig, I saw this, as far as I can tell, in my therapy office once.
Really? In
Once.
20 years of practice or more?
Well, since I've been aware of it, I've been very aware of it the last 4 or 5 years or so, 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
in working with this particularly. And it was very different session than I've ever had. Because usually in a couples counseling session, dude, I am struggling to get it to within what managed care makes me try to do in an hour. Because you've got your thoughts, they've got their thoughts, and they got their story, and you got your story, and I'm getting a lot of information all at once. Yeah, I should spend 2 hours with an initial therapy session for couples. I've gotten good at getting a lot of information in a quick period of time, but I was done with them in 40 minutes. I was like, that's the whole story. I've got everything.
Wow.
Because they were both just like not externalizing a lot of information, which is what people do. Very internalized with withdrawal. So you can have abandonment, pursue. What happens there, and I've seen that a few times, it's chaotic. There's a lot going on. I mean, it's a love fest in the beginning of the relationship. Just boom, 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 boom. And then, but, it's when things aren't going well, it's crash, crash, crash. There's just so much going on together.
Oh, wow.
I would probably need 3 hours to do a full assessment.
Yeah. So this is abandonment. Two abandonment people.
An overwhelming majority of the time, it really is one person is in the engulfment role who withdraws, and the other person is in the abandonment role, and they pursue.
Is it more women abandonment, women engulfment, or does it kind of evenly distributed, or how does that whole gender dynamic work?
People are going to think we lead each other with this because you're perfectly leading exactly the where I want to go with these things. You're awesome. Great minds think alike.
That's true.
Because it is, dramatic pause, not gender-oriented at all.
Wow.
At all.
So there you have it, folks. Abandonment and engulfment in a nutshell. Once again, if you want to do a deeper dive, episode 11, episode 41, and episode 42. We're going to be releasing more shorts. We're going to do those on Monday morning, and then our regularly scheduled show will pick back up next Wednesday, as usual, with me and Chris on a new topic. And we'll talk to you guys then. Thanks for listening.